Hi there, it's Petr here again, the guy who hates tomatoes but loves front-end development. In today's video, you will learn how to use the Webpack 2 and Bootstrap together and how to customize Bootstrap and only include the components that you really need. But before we do that, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and check out all the other Webpack 2 tutorials. Now we will have a look how to include Twitter Bootstrap, CSS or SCSS and JavaScript in your Webpack 2 project. Here I have a simple HTML template with Bootstrap markup. So some of these column structures are taken just from the examples of Twitter Bootstrap, and we will have a look how to load the CSS and JavaScript. Make sure that the modal opens up and the column structure works as well. We will use a handy loader, Bootstrap loader, that lets you configure which parts of the CSS and JavaScript you want to include. I'll be honest, I don't like too much of the documentation. There's a lot of text before you get to the installation guide. And if we scroll down to the installation, the first thing we'll do, we'll install the Bootstrap loader. We'll copy that, go to our VS Code. I'll quit the build for now and run npm I and then Bootstrap loader. When the installation is finished, you see that there are some unmet dependencies. So we need to also include the resolve URL loader and URL loader. So let's install these two, npm I D for development dependencies. Then we'll go back to the documentation and see what else we need to install. We need to install Bootstrap 3, so Bootstrap SaaS project we need to install as well. If you're following and if you want to install Bootstrap 4, you will need to install the Alpha 4, but in this tutorial we will install Bootstrap 3. So let's copy this, paste it in, and now we're installing Bootstrap SaaS. Again, go back to the documentation. We're skipping the Bootstrap 4. Note SaaS, other loaders needed to handle styles. Okay, so we already have a CSS loader. We have a Node SaaS. So the only thing from here is the resolve URL loader and the URL loader, which we've already installed. All the other dependencies are installed from our previous CSS tutorials. And the last step is only for Bootstrap 4 and Webpack 2, so we don't have to worry about these two, and that should be it. Now we'll scroll down and have a look at the usage section. Simply require it like this, or we can define an entry point, and that's what we will do. But before we define the entry point, we will also create a config file, which is optional, but I think it's good to include it and only define which CSS and which parts of the JavaScript to include. The file should be placed in the root folder or root directory and should be named Bootstrap RC. So we will create this file. You can write it in YAML or JSON format. And here is a default Bootstrap 3. So I'm not gonna try to reinvent the wheel. We will use the default config file for Bootstrap 3 and we will simply copy the content of this file and save it inside of our folder as a new file called .bootstraprc and paste the config inside of it. In this file, you can turn some of the features on and off. At the moment, we would be loading all the scripts, but if you only want the alerts, you can turn all the other features to false and only include alerts. So we would turn this to true. This is how you would configure the JavaScript section. The same is for the CSS section as well. But for now, I want to keep everything as it was, so we will include all the JavaScript and all CSS. Now, as you know from the previous tutorials in the Webpack Config.js, we have this is production and is dev environment where we loading a different CSS, or we're using the extract text plugin in the production mode and simply using the dev CSS dev loaders in the development mode. So we will need something similar for our Bootstrap. We will have another entry point Bootstrap, and then we will need to configure it different way for the production and dev modes. For that, I was looking inside of the examples for the right configuration, and if you look at the basic usage, the basic example, there is a configuration Webpack Bootstrap Config.js in the root folder, and this is what we'll use in our tutorial. Okay, so this loader, this Webpack Bootstrap Config does exactly that. It checks for the environment variable Bootstrap dev entry point and Bootstrap production entry point, and lets us use either dev or prod based on which of the modes we in. And if we are in the development mode, it uses the Bootstrap loader. If we are in the production mode, it uses the Bootstrap loader with the extract styles. Okay, so this is what we need to copy. Again, I'll just get the raw file. I just get the content, copy, and create Webpack Bootstrap Config.js in the root of our project, and paste everything inside of it, just making sure that we have the right name, Webpack Bootstrap Config.js. Let's check that if that's correct. Webpack Bootstrap Config.js. That's correct. Now we will go back to VS Code and we'll open the Webpack Config.js, and the first thing we'll define here, we will require this Webpack Bootstrap file at the top of the file. And now we can write a similar config to the CSS config, but this one will be only for our Bootstrap. So we'll call it var bootstrap config equals, and if it's production mode, we want to use the bootstrap entry points dot prod, and if it's the dev, we want to use the other option dot dev. Now we have one variable that we can reuse. I'll close the terminal for now. We'll use this bootstrap config as our new entry point. So after app inside of the entries, we will write bootstrap, just bootstrap, and we will use the bootstrap config. Okay, so the name will be bootstrap, the name of the bundle will be bootstrap, and we're using the bootstrap config, which is either the production or the dev mode based on whether we're running npm run prod or npm run dev. Okay, enough typing. Save the Webpack config.js and open the terminal, and let's see what we've got at the moment. npm run dev, and we're probably gonna get some errors. So what are these errors? We need to figure it out. Bootstrap dev entry point, invalid or unexpected token inside of the Webpack Bootstrap config, line 34. So let's open that file, line 34, and looks like when I copy and paste the file, some of the quotes were not included properly. So let's copy this file again. And that's much better. Okay, so I copy and paste the raw file. So if you have a similar issue, make sure that you click on edit file, click on the edit icon, and then copy and paste the file from here, from the edit mode. Okay, when I paste that in, we don't see that error anymore. So I can save the config, save the bootstrap config, and try to run it again. Okay, project is compiling, Do we have some errors? Yes, we do have some errors. So let's figure these errors again together. We'll scroll to the first error. So always trying to figure out the errors from the first one. And as you can see, it's complaining about file name with EOT extension. For this file, we need appropriate loader. At the moment, we have no configuration for any of the fonts that Bootstrap is using. And that's why the Webpack fails. So let's go to the config and search for WOFF files. And here is the section icon fonts. Bootstrap uses icon fonts. So if you want to load them, don't forget to set up URL loader or file loader. Okay, so we can copy these two lines and add these two tests into our config as well. So just scroll past the JPEG PNG, comma, and we paste these two objects in. One will test for the WOFF file, SVG, TTF, and EOT files, and we'll include these files in the final project distribution folder. Now let's save the config again, scroll down to the bottom, quit the build, and run it again. We're getting closer, making sure that it finishes, compiled successfully. Okay, looks like there are no issues at the moment, which is cool. And what we see in the browser, voila, we've got the browser loading the Bootstrap. And if I click on launch demo model, we don't see the model coming down from the top of the viewport, but we've got the styles loading. Okay, so it looks like styles are working fine, but the JavaScript is not kicking in. And if we look at the console, we will see there is an error. jQuery is not defined. Okay, it looks like Bootstrap needs jQuery and we're not including jQuery in our project. That's why it fails. So let's fix that in the next step. Let's go back to the Bootstrap loader config and search for jQuery section. If you want to use Bootstrap and JS scripts, you need to provide jQuery. And here is the appropriate loader. So we'll copy Bootstrap 3 test and paste this object inside of our Webpack config just after the TTF. And also what we need to include this imports loader. Okay, so that's one loader we haven't installed yet, and also jQuery. Okay, we want to make sure these two are installed for us. And now let's try to run the build again and see if we have the model coming through. Voila, we've got a jQuery model and the CSS styles from Webpack coming through. If we view the page source, you'll see that at the bottom of the page we have Bootstrap bundle and app.bundle.js. And if we run the production mode, npm run prod, we should see the files being exported, the CSS being exported into new bundle. But looks like there is an issue. You did not specify a Bootstrap RC location. Let's scroll up back to that warning. You did not specify Bootstrap location. This file should be called Bootstrap. Okay, Bootstrap. Okay, bootstrap.rc. So let's save the file and run the production mode again. Hopefully this time we don't see that. Okay, we don't see that warning message again, and we are using our bootstrap.rc file or .bootstrap.rc file with the config. If we look into the dist folder, we've got a lot of files generated here, but don't freak out, we can clean it up. We want the fonts to end up in the fonts folder. So we'll simply add name to the URL loader and file loader. And now we should see the fonts being saved into fonts folder. Okay, so as you can see, a new folder is created with all the fonts inside of there. And then we've got bundle.js, Bootstrap bundle.js, and app CSS. Now, if you're wondering why do we have only app CSS and not Bootstrap CSS as well, and the reason is very simple. In the Webpack config, we need to define, when we're using the extract text plugin, we want to use the name of our bundle instead of hard coding it to the app CSS, and we want this to end up in a CSS folder. So let's include the CSS in front of the name, and that should result into the CSS files being saved into CSS folder. Here it is, two files. One is app.css, which is our style sheet, which is our original app.scss, and then the Bootstrap having the Bootstrap styles inside of it. If we look at the generated HTML, that has two files linked. One is the Bootstrap, and after that, our CSS file. The last thing we'll have a look is the customization. How can we customize some of the variables of Bootstrap and include it into our app.js? Let's say we want this pink title to be the green success of Bootstrap default styles. So we want to define the success green color and then apply it to our h1 inside of our app.scss. So the first thing for that we'll need to do is to go into the Bootstrap RC, to the customization file, and you can go through all these options, but the one I want to show you is the customization. So I'm uncommenting the Bootstrap customization path, and here we will define a path to customization.scss. This could be src and Bootstrap customization. So let's create this folder, new folder Bootstrap, and inside of it I'm creating a new file, customization.scss, and here we can override any of the values based on the underscore variables SCSS file. If you're familiar with Bootstrap, you know that there are some default variables, and we can override the success color. I'm just gonna have a look inside of the node modules. What is the variable for that? So what I'm looking here is a Bootstrap Sass, assets style sheets, and inside of Bootstrap should be variables file. We copy this brand success color, and we will paste it inside of our customization, and we'll change this color to green. Okay, so this is our brand color now. And if we want to use this brand success color inside of our app.scss, we will need to import it. And use the variable for our headline color. Okay, replacing the pink with brand success color, and anything related to this color inside of the default Bootstrap styles will be also changed to our green. Okay, if I save it and refresh the page, we will see that this is now green color, and that's how we're customizing and using variables from Bootstrap styles. If there are any other questions that you have regarding using Bootstrap with Webpack 2, let me know in the comments. I'm sure I've missed a lot. And that's it all for today. Now you know how to configure and include Bootstrap into your Webpack 2 project. Hope you find this tutorial useful. If you did, Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to check out all the other Webpack 2 tutorials. Until next time, happy coding! Bye!